How's it going, YouTube? Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. Very quickly, just wanted to do a very quick update here on a company, of course, that was pretty popular. I know a lot of you may have even accounts with Robinhood here, ticker symbol HOOD, listed here on the NASDAQ. Stock right now, a touch over 8 3/4, 876, up 29 cents, 3.4% here on the day, down a couple of cents here after hours. And I just wanted to look at a few of the technicals here to see what could possibly be happening in the next several days, and of course, maybe in the next couple of weeks, to see where it could go, how low it could go, how high it could go. Now, first of all, I just want to show you guys, of course, this was earnings that came out recently, as we see here, May 10th, about 2 weeks ago, and you can see a nice beat there on the top and bottom lines. However, in my opinion, doesn't really get me too excited, because even though they reported here 440 million roughly, as you see coming down here, the losses heavily outweighed the revenue brought in. So somehow you bring it in now, revenue's been slowly climbing somehow, and now it's up to almost 450 million, which of course is a good sign, and then boom, the company loses over $500 million in the quarter, and you see the profit margin there minus about 114%. Now granted, again, the last couple of quarters it has been coming back to life. However, remember, even up here at 450 million, you're still talking about what, like 1.6, 1.7 billion for the year. And you switch over here annually, and look, they started out from a couple of $100 million, almost broke that billion mark, got up to 1.8. Of course, this was when stimulus money came in, and probably every young investor opened up a Robinhood account and began trading. And that's why, in my opinion, this company is still tremendously overvalued, and I do feel it's going to continue to pull back down. As you see, 184 billion, lost $2 of every dollar that they made. Now you can see they lost about 75 cents of every dollar that they made. However, revenue dipped down, roughly $500 million, and dropped down from 1.84 down to 1.38 billion. That's for the year. 1.38 billion for the year. Current market cap, 7.84 billion. This is why even all those months back, when whoever it was, that crypto guy or whatever, took a position in Robinhood, I said it was a waste. I think the stock was at like $10. Since then, like right after I made the video, it dropped down like into the 8s and whatnot, and you can see even recently here, before the pump up going into these earnings, you can see, it dropped all the way down only to about 821. So I still feel that the stock is tremendously overvalued. However, it started to run up here, and you can see a big gap up here when this news came out. Why? Because initially they wanted to pop the stock just because it was, green, and it was a green beat on the top and bottom lines. However, you can see that it broke up to 996 and then immediately pulled back, but ran back up to this level here. You can see the high at the top, the O, the H, the L, the C again. That's the open, the high, the low, the close. And you can see the high of 966. And then if we zoom in, you can see, boom, it rejected right there bigly and started to chunk down. Now, obviously, that was a key level, as we see here. I drew 2 ellipses for you guys, and you can see multiple bounces and supports and resistances off of this level, even going all the way back to March. You can see that's where a lot of action was taking place at roughly that 966, 967 level. And since then, though, we bounced off those levels, and again, look at the huge red candles coming down, in my opinion, forming a potential pull, and now the stock has been bouncing around here really since like the 16th, it says, and has really been bouncing around in this tight little channel, which in my opinion is now forming our flag. So I feel technically, in my opinion, this is a bear flag, and it should technically not only pull back soon to the bottom of this trend line, but eventually, perhaps maybe Wednesday or Thursday if they drag it out, but it will eventually break down out of this pattern and should begin dropping again into the low 8s and potentially even the 7s. Because again, looking at the numbers, even if we're kind and say that revenue is going to keep increasing, and let's say next quarter they do, like 460 million, and then 510 million, and then 540 million. Guess what? You add all that up, that's still not the best they've ever done, and it's still going to be below this 1.84 billion mark. And even if it's above it, chances are they're probably going to lose $1, $1.50 for every dollar that they brought in for that year for some reason. And still, even at $2 billion annual income, it is still, in my opinion, overvalued. Because again, these are the stocks that should be punished. The stocks that aren't growing their revenue as well as predicted. And now, again, with these losses, that's what I mean. You look at a year like this, losing $2 for every dollar. Like, the fact that it has even maintained its value from these numbers being posted is really blowing my mind. So that's why, I understand you got a billionaire player, crypto guy, whoever it was, who stepped in and now took a stake in Robinhood. But I'm telling you right now, this stock is overvalued here, even at around 8.75. And I know some of you may want it to go higher, but I'm telling you, not only just in this short-term pattern here, because again, it could drop down and then immediately pop back up to $8, $9. So, it's not going to be the end of the world here in the short term. I'm just pointing out a little pattern that I see. But again, only beat 2 of the last 4. And I understand that, estimates keep rising, but at the end of the day, the company seems to be struggling even when revenue continues to climb. But of course, the next couple of quarters, only time will tell. And I know that, again, some of these numbers were rising and the profit margin, the losses were, narrowing. And listen, that's all great news. However, even with all of that going on, the company is still overvalued technically on paper. So, I just wanted to draw this to your attention here. But if we pull out maybe like a 1-year chart, and you can see here, if this is our flag, if this is our poll, whatever you want to call it, and then this is our flag, as you see here, if we break down, we're looking at potentially about $7.97, just a touch below $8. But I also wanted to show you on stock charts here, and I'll throw my Bollinger Bands on very quickly, because even though we do have a technical pattern setting up, again, you have to look at all indicators. So again, this was our huge drop down, and now we've been flagging. However, because of this nice little chunk here, I just want to show you guys, look at how the MACD looks like it's potentially about to cross. Now again, it could like just about meet up and reject and start pulling down again and break down out of that bear flag that we pointed at. However, if it does happen to cross, they probably will, chunk it up here in the short term, and it won't necessarily break down in that bear flag. However, again, based on the numbers, everything we just looked at, it really shouldn't break up out of that bear flag, and it really should chunk down a couple of percentage points as opposed to rising. Even though I know here, even though I know here the RSI is still sitting at about 46.7. I mean, again, could continue to run up and climb, but what was the high here? The high was 878, closed at 876, and look at that Bollinger Band, the mid one, 877. So it closed right below that Bollinger Band, so that's why I'm saying if we're staying in this flag pattern, then it should technically, like, boom, pull back, you know what I'm saying, and drop down to, like, 855, 860, and, like, stay in that range, and then, boom, break down to the low 8s or potentially high 7s. Switching over here on the weekly, the company has established a 50-day moving average. It is sitting here at 949, and obviously if the stock slowly continues to sell off, that will slowly pull back as well. That 50-day moving average should be like $8 or like 7.5, but of course, I guess you could say I'm just kind of hating on the stock and hating on the company, but technically this is why I look at the numbers and this is why we look at the technicals, because you have to look at everything. You have to try to look at all of these metrics and put them together to really try to decipher whether a company is going to, appreciate and grow in value for you over the months and over the years, or if this is just like a pipe dream and it's being held up by, stock twits in a Reddit forum, So, again, I understand a lot of people have Robinhood accounts, and then the company began trading public, so they figured, what's the worst that can happen? I get it. I can understand that. I can appreciate that. However, again, the company really seems to be struggling, and it's kind of hard for me to accept the fact that all you're doing is like running this online trading platform, and you're making commissions off of every trade, yet somehow, like revenues aren't really growing, and you're also just taking on like these huge heavy losses. I don't know. I'm just really not understanding, because you would think laying out the business model like that this company would be wildly profitable, taking in probably, 15, 20, maybe upwards of 30% profit margins. And obviously the company is bleeding. So again, this reminds me more of a DraftKings, a while back, 6-12 months back, when we initially looked at it and we saw basically the same thing. The company was losing like $1.50 for every dollar that they made. So they were kind of beating it up. They were bouncing it around. It was like fighting to stay, I think, between like $10 and $12. Don't quote me on that. And then what happened? They started narrowing the losses. Revenue really started to pump up. And even though still, in my opinion, DKNG, DraftKings, is still heavily overvalued right here, it's more understandable. It makes more sense as to why that stock began to climb, right? They're doing bigger and better things than a company like a Robinhood Markets is doing right now. But that's just my slant. MACD looks relatively flat here on the weekly. Again, you do have the tightening happening. RSI sitting at only about 44 and change. But again, coming over here, you throw on your 1 month chart, reject it off that trend line. These numbers, like I said, based on their valuation of almost $8 billion, I mean, this should be up to like 600-700 million minimum, in my opinion. And that's what I mean. The fact that they're, coming in, yeah, listen, it was a good beat, but, I mean, you lowball the estimates, you're hoping for some growth, and, hopefully the company beats. Like, you know what I'm saying? But, again, you can see our post, you can see our flag, and in my opinion, it should pull back and bounce around and then break down. However, of course, what was the other stock we looked at? PSNY. I mean, we can check on that one again. I know markets have been relatively stable for the last couple of days since I last looked at it, but again, it doesn't always work out, and it looked like it was forming a bear flag. I remember putting it in the video, and then I pulled up the stock the next day, and I was like, oh, let me see what's going on, and the stock was up, I think, basically around this amount, about 3.4%, incidentally, but yeah, it doesn't always work out, and granted, the market began to rage and rally that day, so, probably took PSNY with it, but again, you're never going to be right 100% of the time, but on the flip side, don't beat yourself up, because if you're in a, going through a little bit of a rut now, you're never going to be wrong 100% of the time as well, right? Control the controllables, remember some of these key metrics to look for, try to notice a pattern taking place, and of course, when in doubt, forget about the short game and possibly try to look more at the long game and, just buy shares of decent companies who have the potential to grow or continue to grow, who we feel are undervalued. And again, companies like Safe Bulkers, SB, has been, slowly climbing since we first started the video, even though it went down before it went up. Rolls-Royce, RYCEY. We looked at that about the time the ball dropped. It was at about $1.20. Stock jumped up to north of $1.80, north of $1.90, right? So you're up over 50% on that one. So, there are winners out there. SoundHound, I just put out a video. If you guys check that one out, just put out a new video today on SoundHound. Same thing, up over 50%. We initially started looking at the stock. It was down at like $1.90 between $2. The stock had a massive pop today, but along the way, yes, it was volatile and bouncing around because that's what you're getting into. You need to know those risks involved when you're buying one of these small cap stocks. However, at the end of the day, if you grab some shares when we first looked at it and said we liked it at $1.90, $2, guess what? Now it's over $3. Boom, you're up over 50% on that one, right? And these are only up within the last couple of months. So that's why I'm saying, look for the undervalued stocks, look for the distressed assets and securities. That's where you should be investing into. Not just something because they're talking about it on Wall Street Bets, or, again, the new norm after GameStop, which, again, I keep reiterating was an anomaly. Everyone simply just, sorts a list of stocks by highest short interest, and they just pile into these stocks that are, heavily shorted, just waiting, expecting a pop. But they didn't do their proper due diligence and their research to see why the stock is heavily shorted. You know what I'm saying? For all you know, the company could be massively bleeding, dragging ass. There could have been embezzlement and shit going on. They could have been cooking the books for the last 18 months straight, so everyone and their brother piled in to short shares of the stock. So, you can't just buy something just because, one thing is showing you that. Because you can see the metric, but sometimes you need to find the why. And if you don't know the why, then you shouldn't pull the trigger. And it's not worth buying or shorting, whatever side you're taking. But I'm going to end it there. Just a couple of things here, a little update on Robinhood. Just wanted to keep you guys informed because I know a lot of people are involved. So I just wanted to show you. Oh, also here, right, this is what's just been happening the last couple of days. And again, I drew this trend line also. You can see the high today, 878, and then right here at the close, look, got up to 877. So in my opinion, it's like it wants to make that double top to also justify, again, to reiterate in the short term that, hey, we should be chunking down and get back to this range here of about 8.5. But just wanted to do a quick update, let you guys know a couple of things that I saw in the works here potentially moving forward for Robinhood Markets HOOD. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. Thank you for stopping by. Thumbs up, algorithm, helps out the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Notifications moving forward. I wish everyone success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for stopping by. I love you. Have a good day.